Miss Wright, you're still under oath.
You can take your mask off. There you go. Okay. So I just want to try and clarify. At some point in time, Mr. Ford and his relationship, or at the beginning, how was Mr. Ford's relationship with the people over at 719 Fultz? How did it start out?
The people next door?
No, at Fultz. Lindell Lewis's house.
Okay.
So let me if I step up here. So Mr. Ford and his relationship with the people in this house over here, initially, how was it?
It was fine.
Fine.
Yeah,
And did it stay fine or did it change?
it changed.
All right, at some point it changed. And how did you notice that? Could you see it visually? Like, was there an incident that Mr. Ford maybe went over to the house and then left abruptly?
He came over and talked to us.
Mr. Ford did.
Yeah.
And he talked to you about how,
He didn't want to go in there anymore. He was aggravated with him.
okay,
And I don't know why.
all right. And so then there was a clear division after that.
Yes.
Let me ask you now about the 719 Fultz house fire. Do you recall that?
You have to answer yes or no, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you remember about that? Were you awake or asleep when that fire started, or how did you become aware of it?
We were asleep, and then we heard the fire engine.
Okay. And
We
you,
got up and went out.
so you and your husband woke up from the fire engines, and then you got up and went out.
Yes.
And you went outside.
Yes.
Okay.
Cold.
And when you went outside, did you see anybody that you recognized?
Yeah, we saw, you just had his name.
Tommy. Was it Tommy?
Tommy.
Okay. And where did you see Tommy?
Tommy ran out come out the yard and out into the street.
And when you say the yard, are you talking about the yard from 719 Fultz?
Right there in the front. Yes.
Okay.
719 Fultz.
Okay.
And we lived on Hillcrest, and he came out through there, and the fire department was there.
Okay.
He came out barefooted and no coat on or anything. It was really cold.
All right.
And I ran and got some socks for him.
Okay. And at that point in time, did you talk to him or did you have any conversation?
We talked a little bit. I was more concerned about keeping him warm.
All right.
But we said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "I'm okay."
All right.
So he said something blew up, is what his words were.
Okay. And at some point in time, did you ever hear something blow up or a boom or anything like that? You did not?
No, he was sound asleep.
Okay. And what did your husband do? Do you remember what he did, if anything?
What my husband did?
Yeah.
He was helping me get, I think he ran and got the lawn chair to get him in, to get, say his name.
Tommy?
Yeah, get him in
Okay.
in a seat.
Okay.
And then I ran in the house. A neighbor came up from way down over the hill. She came running up. She ran down and got him something, and I got him something, and I got a blanket and covered him up because he was so cold.
All right. And do you, after that night, had you seen Tommy again after that?
Nope.
All right. So now, do you recall that there was another fire on Fultz about a year later?
Yes.
What, if anything, do you recall about that fire?
That fire, my husband was in the hospital. I was in bed at about 3 o'clock in the morning. My bedroom was orange looking. And we don't really live that close to that. But anyway, there was a big fire down. Do you want me to say detail?
You can tell us about the fire, what you recall.
There was a big fire, and fire engines, what woke me up really was fire engines.
Okay.
And 5 children, I believe it was.
Well, you don't have to tell us about that.
Okay.
That's okay, and we'll talk about that later. But you only learned that from other people, is that fair?
I didn't go down there,
Right.
but I saw the fire engines.
And as far as the people that lived in that house, did you know them at all?
No.
Okay, so they kind of lived around the corner, and you didn't really know them at all, or interact with them
No, at all.
And you had no knowledge of any relationship between them and Mr. Ford, is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. May I have a moment, Judge?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Wright, you talked about the gentleman that lived on the corner at 1370 Hillcrest, and you referred to him as Mr. Ford or Stanley. Do you see that person here in court today? Where is he? Can you point him out for us?
You asking me, do I see him?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, could you point him out for us and describe what he's wearing? You're pointing to this gentleman here?
Yes.
All right. And why are you pointing to him?
Because I think he's Ford.
All right, can you take your mask off? Does he still look like Mr. Ford to you?
Yeah. Now
All right.
you're getting me all confused.
All right. At the time, let me ask, the last time you saw Mr. Ford, what was his hair like?
Longer, a little longer.
And when you say long, how long was it?
Wasn't very long.
Mr. Ford?
When I saw him when we were downstairs last time I was in here,
Yeah.
I think it was bald.
Okay. All right. And when he lived across the street from you, how was his hair?
Pretty much bald.
All right. All right, I have no further questions, Judge. Thank you.
Mr. Riley.
Thank you. Mrs. Wright, thanks for coming out. We don't have any questions for you. Thank you.
Okay,
All
great.
right, Ms. Wright, you need to step down. Thank you very much. You're excused. You can leave and leave the courtroom and the courthouse if you need to. And you can put your mask back on too, okay?
Okay,
Thank you. Take care. Mr. D'Angelo, do you have a minute regarding your next witness?
Yeah, we do have another witness, and she's out in the hallway.
And yes or no regarding the child?
Oh, I will find out. She does that.
Totally inappropriate.
And they're working on some new mic covers, so we can change them.
Yeah, you can.
What's wrong?
Did he say something?
No, we don't have them yet.
Oh,
He's
okay.
working on them.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, no objection.
Oh, I'm sorry. Stand up one more time. I apologize. Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may be seated. Thank you. So I'll just advise you, as I have everyone, between the fan, the plexiglass, you're going to remove your mask, but I need you to just make sure you keep your voice up and speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. If you would please introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your full name.
Geraldine Lewis.
And Ms. Lewis, I'm assuming you spell your last name standard way of spelling Lewis?
L-E-W-I-S.
Thank you. And Ms. Lewis, could you tell us how old you are?
73.
And just a little bit about your background. Did you grow up in the Akron area?
Yes.
And pretty much your whole life?
Yes.
And do you have a lot of family?
Not too much here. I have family scattered over.
All right.
I just have a brother and 2 sisters and my children.
Okay. And so how many brothers and sisters did you have?
It was 6 of us, 3 brothers, 2 sisters.
All right. And one of your brothers is named Lindell, is that correct?
Yes.
And how old was Lindell? Who was older, you or Lindell?
I'm older. Today, Lindell would have been 70.
Today
is his birthday. Would have been his birthday.
And you grew up, so he was just about a year younger than you?
3 years.
3 years, okay. And so you guys grew up in the same household?
Yes.
And were you close?
We were, yes.
All right. As much as an older sister and her 3 year
Right.
younger
We
annoying
did a lot
little
of
brother
things
could
together,
be.
yes, when we
Okay.
was growing up.
As you grew older, obviously you had your own different families, correct?
Yes.
And tell us about Lindell. Did he get married? Did he stay single? Did he have kids?
Lindell got married. He had 3 children. He traveled a lot with his construction company because he was in construction as a bricklayer.
All right. And so let me ask you a little bit about what you did for a living. Now you're retired now, is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been retired?
Since 2016.
Okay. And when you were working, what did you do?
I was a supervisor at the recycling plant that's downtown, that was downtown. And then when I got laid off from there, I went to Western Reserve Hospital.
All right. How long were you at the recycling plant?
15 years.
And then how long were you at Western Reserve
Western
Hospital?
Reserve, 20 years.
All right. So you put in a full 35 years between the two places.
Yes.
And then you retired in 2016.
Yes.
Now you were telling us a little bit about what Lindell did. What did he do for a living?
He was into construction. My father had his own construction company, so during the summer, Lindell and my brother Gregory used to work with my dad. And then when they got older, they went into the trade too.
All right. And so did, excuse me, did Lindell work pretty much his whole life?
Yes.
At some point, did he retire?
Yes. After he retired I think it was after he had his heart attack.
All right. So he had a heart attack at some point in time?
Yes.
And how significant was that? Do you know?
It was pretty bad. I think he had a triple bypass. I think it was a triple bypass.
All right. So he had a heart attack followed by triple bypass surgery?
Yes.
You said he got married and had 3 kids?
Yes.
And who was his wife?
Francine Lewis. Well, Trice at the time, Francine Trice.
And then she married him and became Francine Lewis.
Yes.
Did they stay married or did they ultimately separate?
They ended up getting a divorce. I'm not sure what year it was because they were living in Douglasville, Georgia.
Okay.
And sometime they got a divorce.
All right. Is it fair to say it was some time ago?
Yes, it's been a while ago.
And did you know Francine?
Yes.
And how well did you know her? I mean, I don't know if you were...
Oh, I knew Francine. I knew her real well because I at some point dated her brother.
Okay.
So.
And so when how else? Was there other ways that you knew her? Did you work with her?
No, I never worked with Francine.
Okay. At some point in time, did Lindell have another relationship with another woman?
Yes.
And who would that have been?
Well, he had several in between.
Okay.
but
Ultimately, though, he ends up.
at the end, it was Gloria Hart, Jeannie.
Gloria Hart, Hart.
Yes, and we called her Jeannie.
Okay, so Jeannie was her nickname.
Yes.
And how long had you known Jeannie?
I met Jeannie when she got laid off from her job at Chrysler. She came to the recycling plant and worked there for a few months. That's how I met her.
All right.
But I didn't know her and Lindell was dating.
Okay. And so she worked at the recycling, the Chrysler stamping plant? That's where
Yes.
she worked?
Yes.
Do you know how long she worked there?
No, I knew she had been there for many years.
And then that closed down, right?
Yes.
And then so she started working for the recycling plant?
No, she only worked at the recycling plant for a couple of months while she was laid off. And they called her back, so she went back to
Oh, I see.
Chrysler.
Okay. And then so she spent most of her career at the Chrysler stamping?
As far as I know, yes.
Do you know if she retired from there? If you
I
know.
think she did retire. I'm not sure. I'm not gonna
Okay.
say I'm not sure.
And how long were you aware? Well, strike that. So she came and she was working with you at this recycle plant for a short period of time.
Yes.
That's where you met her.
Yes.
You didn't know at the time that she was dating your brother.
No.
She leaves the recycling plant, and do you ever see her after that?
No.
Okay. Do you, at some point in time though, you do see her again? When would that be?
I ran into her at City Hospital when Lindell he was in City Hospital because he was having heart surgery.
All right. And you saw her there.
And I saw Jeannie coming out she was in the lobby leaving, and I was coming in. And we started talking, and I asked her who was she there to see. And she said Lindell Lewis, and I told her that's my brother.
All right.
So up until then, neither one of us knew.
All right.
She knew Lindell.
And then that was the first time you learned that they were going out.
Yes.
What if is the best you can tell us? When was it that your brother had his heart surgery?
It had to be in sometime in 2000. I'm not sure of the date,
Okay.
but I know it was in 2000 something.
All right. More than 10 years ago?
Oh yes, it was more than 10 years.
Okay. And once you realized they were dating, did you then see Gloria or Jeannie after that?
I would see her when Lindell would bring her to different functions that we had.
Okay.
He would bring her.
All right. And where did Lindell live?
He was living, my parents passed, so he ended up buying us out for their home. And then after a while, he ended up buying the home up on Fultz.
All right. And was that 719 Fultz?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to refer to State's Exhibit. I got to remember the number here. 12. Do you see this right here?
Yes.
Okay. So are you familiar with this map? Can you get yourself oriented?
Yes.
All right. So if this is Fultz and Hillcrest, do you see your brother's home here?
The one on the right.
Here?
Yes.
Or is it 719? Was that his address, 719 Fultz, as far as you know?
I didn't know the address, but I knew that would be where he lived.
Okay. And how often, if at all, did you go to visit your brother at 719 Fultz?
A couple times a month. Lindell liked to grill, so we would go up there.
Okay. And so you would go there to socialize?
Yes.
Okay. When you would go there, would Jeannie be there?
Sometimes she would, yes.
Okay. As far as your brother living at 719 Fultz, do you know who, if anybody, lived there with him?
I didn't. I mean, see, my brother Gregory lived there at one point,
Okay.
and then he moved out. Then I knew, and he had a couple other tenants living down there in the basement, but I didn't know him.
Okay. And why didn't you know them?
I just didn't know him. I just didn't.
And do you know what kind of people he had staying with him?
No, I didn't know anything about these
Didn't know
guys.
anything about it. Okay.
Mhm.
As far as that neighborhood went, were you familiar with any of the people that lived in that neighborhood other than your brother?
No.
Okay. Was there a point in time where are you familiar with the name Stanley Ford?
Only since the incident has happened. Other than that, no.
All right. So prior to, you said an incident. Prior to this incident, you didn't know who Stanley Ford was?
No.
All right. So what incident are you referring to, and when did it take place, as best you can recall?
Well, the fire, the arson fire of Lindell and Jeannie.
Okay.
And it, April of 2016, I think it was.
Okay. So that's the incident you're talking about?
Yes.
All right. Do you recall an incident where you were there grilling with Lindell?
Oh, yes. My daughter, Jeannie was there, and we were grilling,
Okay.
and someone across the street told us we need to go home because we're making too much noise. It was only like 3 or 4 of us. I turned around and looked to see who it was,
Okay.
and they were standing on their steps. The house was directly across the street from Lindell.
All right. Can you tell us? I don't know if we have that pointer. Joe, do we have that laser pointer?
We did.
Oh, here it is. And if you just push that button, there'll be a little green dot that shows up. Can you tell us?
This house right here.
And so you said that the person was standing on their porch?
On the steps.
On the steps.
Mhm.
And where were you? You were at 719 Fultz, and
We were like on the side of the house, closer. We were probably right about in here.
Okay. And is that where he would grill?
Yes.
And what did the person say?
They just told us we need to go home because we're making too much noise. And Lindell just said ignore him, and we left the conversation. We didn't say anything else about it.
All right. What were you doing at that point in time? Was there anything you were doing at that point in time to prompt such a response from the neighbor?
No.
Okay. And it was you, your daughter, you said?
My daughter, Jeannie, and I think one of Lindell's kids was there, either his daughter or son. I can't remember, but I know
All right.
one of them was there.
And Lindell?
And Lindell, yeah.
So that, if I counted up right, that's 5 people
Yeah,
potentially?
at the most.
At the most. And were you drinking? Were you
No.
playing games or just?
We were just out there talking and laughing.
All right.
No drinking was going on.
All right.
No music. We didn't have any music playing.
All right. And why did that stand out in your head? Why did you remember that?
Oh, just because we weren't really that loud or saying anything, so why would anyone, say anything to us?
All right. And at that point in time, do you know how, I guess, much before the fire did that incident happen?
The fire was like in the spring, so this was the year before, because it was in probably August, September, somewhere around there.
Okay. So within a year of the fire.
Yes.
And the person that you saw, did you say anything to that person?
No.
The person that you did see, do you see that person here in court today?
No, I can't say it was Stanley.
Okay. The person that was saying this, though, from the porch, was it a male or a female?
It was a male.
All right. And the impression that you had at that time, or did you have an impression at that time, whether that person lived at the house where they were standing on the step?
Sustained.
Did you believe one way or another whether they lived at that house?
No, I didn't think anything else about it.
Okay. Now, you talked about the fire in April.
Yes.
How did you become aware of that?
My sister called me and said that there was a fire on Lindell Street, and I asked her, was it Lindell's house? She said she didn't know. So I was still, because when she called me, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. I had to go to work that morning. And I was trying to decide, okay, should I go see if it's Lindell's house or what? So I got up to go see if it was actually Lindell's house, since it was on his street. And that's when I found out it was.
And when you got there, did you see anybody that you recognized?
I did run into a fireman that I knew with Alice Pope.
All right. And you did not know Tommy Hughley, is that fair?
No, I didn't know him.
Your brother, you said, had the heart surgery. Did he have any other health issues?
He was a diabetic and he had 2 hip surgeries.
All right. And you said he had 2 hip surgeries. Do you know how much prior to the fire his last or second hip surgery would have been?
Oh, it had to be maybe a month, because he had just gotten out of rehab for his hip about a week before the fire.
Okay. And how was he after that surgery? How was he getting around? Do you know?
He was on a walker. He tried to use a walker, but most of the time he was he tried to use a cane, but most of the time he was on a walker.
All right. And was he able to get up and down steps, or?
He would sit on the steps and back himself up.
Okay. And when was the last time you saw him before the fire?
The day before, on that Sunday morning when I took him to church.
Okay. And then, so you would have been Sunday morning, and then that fire would have been that evening or early next morning?
Early next morning.
Okay. And why was it that you needed to drive him to church?
Because he couldn't drive. And him and I were talking, and he said he wanted to go to church. And I told him, I said, well, I'll take you to church. And I went and picked him up.
You know, I'm going to just show you a couple pictures. First one I'm going to show you is State's Exhibit number 15. Do you recognize that?
Yes, that's Lindell.
That's your brother?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to show you, or mark it as State's Exhibit number 26. Tell me if you recognize that.
That's Jeannie.
Okay. Your Honor, may I publish? So, State's Exhibit number 15, that you said was your brother Lindell. Of course, we've got this camera.
I think if you,
Turn the light off.
yeah,
I turned it on.
if you pull it down a little bit, see
Okay.
the,
Okay. And then State's Exhibit number 26, you said that was Jeannie or Gloria Hart?
Yes.
And since Lindell had his hip surgery and obviously he had other health issues, do you know who was helping him get around and drive around and do all those things during that period of time?
Well, I know Jeannie was helping him. His son was helping.
Okay.
I think his son and daughter, because he has a son and daughter here. But
All right. Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Mr. Gorman.
Good morning, ma'am.
good morning.
It's still morning, barely. It's still morning. First of all, acknowledge your loss on this matter. I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm Joe Gorman. This is Scott Riley. Together we represent Mr. Ford, okay? I'm going to try and ask questions that you can understand, but sometimes I'm not good at it. So I'll ask you to ask me to rephrase it or repeat it in a different way to make sure you understand it before you answer. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right. And if I'm not making any sense, tell me I'm not making any sense, and that's fine too, okay?
Okay.
You had, ma'am, testified in another court proceeding about 17 months ago. Do you remember being in here before?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the time you and I would have met before, if you recall.
Yes.
Okay. And in preparation for your testimony here today, were you provided a copy of the transcript about what you said the last time we were in court?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have a chance to read it?
Yes.
Okay. If I get to the point where I have to ask you a question about what you had testified to previously 17 months ago, and you want to refresh your memory before answering that question, feel free to tell me that, and I will give you a copy of what I call the transcript. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm not trying to trick you on those things.
Okay.
And that lady over there with the blue mask on that's typing, she's the court reporter, so she takes down everything that was said back then, and she's taking down everything that was said today, and that's how we get our transcripts, okay?
Yes.
And then, ma'am, not only did you review the transcript, did you also meet with the two prosecutors sitting at this table in preparation for your testimony?
With one of them, yes.
Okay, which one was that?
This one right here.
All right, the one in the middle?
Yes.
Mr. D'Angelo?
Yes.
Okay. And when would you have done that?
It's been about 2 weeks ago, I think.
Okay. All right, probably met him in his office?
No, he came out.
Oh, he came out to see him? Okay.
Yes.
Good. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to speak to him, that's all.
Yes.
Okay? So I have a few questions, not a lot of questions, but just a few questions.
Okay.
All right? You said that your brother, who lived at 719 Fulton Street, had some other individuals that would live in his basement. You knew of two of them, correct?
I didn't know him.
No, but you knew two people.
Right.
Two people were living down
Yes,
there. Is
at
that
one-
fair? You
yes.
didn't know their names.
No.
All right. And you also knew, I believe, or know that your brother Greg also at some point had lived in that home with your brother Lindell. Is that
Yes.
fair? But Greg had moved out at some point.
Yes.
How soon after the fire do you recall Greg moving out?
Oh, it was before.
Right. I know it was before. It was before the fire, correct?
Yes.
About how soon before the fire?
Oh, maybe a couple of years.
Okay. And Greg has passed since the fire, correct?
Yes.
Did he pass about a year after the fire?
3 months.
3 months after? So shortly after the fire, he
Yes.
passed? Okay. And he would have been, for Lindell, would that have been Lindell's older or younger brother?
Younger.
Younger. So younger than you as well?
Yes.
Okay. As you said, I think you testified you're older than Lindell.
Yes, I'm the oldest.
And he would have been 70 today?
Let me see. If I'm 73 to 71.
71. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Were you aware, ma'am? Well, let me ask you this question. You had been over to Lindell's house at 719 Fultz a couple times a month, you've told us, correct?
Yes.
And you would have done that because he liked to grill outside, correct?
Yes.
And you showed us that place in the driveway, I think, where you were when that one incident occurred. Is that where the grilling would take place?
Yes.
Okay. So a couple times a month you're over there for cookouts?
Yes.
Okay. How long had Lindell lived at 719 Fulton Street? Approximately.
Approximately, let me see. I think about 3 years.
Okay, so he'd been there about 3 years, and during that time, he would have been doing that grilling, correct?
Yes.
So a couple times a month for 3 years, you had been over there visiting with your brother.
Well, no.
No?
Not the whole in the 3 years, because he had his hip surgery.
I'm sorry, ma'am, a little louder?
He had hip surgery, so we wasn't over there as much after he had his hip surgery.
Okay, and he had his hip surgery when?
He had the second one probably a month before the fire.
Okay. The incident that you spoke of at 1370 Hillcrest, where across the street where the person was on the porch, the one you were unable to identify?
Yes.
Yes, you said it was a man, correct?
Yes.
That was the only time you saw any argument between your brother and anybody in that neighborhood, is that
Yes.
fair? Just
Yes.
that one time?
Just at one time.
Okay. Were you aware, ma'am, of, let me ask you this question. The people that were in the basement, living in the basement, the two gentlemen that lived in the basement, did they ever participate in the cookouts with you?
No.
Okay. Were you aware of any drug or alcohol issues for anyone who was living in that house with your brother?
No.
Okay. Were you aware of your brother's alcohol issue?
I have never seen my brother drink, so
Okay.
I didn't know of anything about no alcohol.
He never drank in front of you?
He's never.
Okay.
We could be around. We have Christmas parties, wherever we would have. Lindell never drank.
Okay. Lindell owned more than that property. You said he owned your parents' house, correct?
Yes.
He had bought the siblings out of
Yes.
their portion of the house?
Yes.
All right. And where was that house located?
383 Trigonia Drive.
Okay. And is that in Akron as well?
Yes.
Okay. And he also owned property on South Street, correct? At one
Yes.
point? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And is that also in the city of Akron?
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware that that house caught on fire too, correct?
Yes.
All right. And that would have been perhaps 5 or 10 years prior to his
Yes.
house on Fultz catching on fire?
Yes.
Okay. Did the Akron Police Department, ma'am, ever, after the fire, and the fire happened in 2016, have you ever sat down and been interviewed by anybody from the Akron Police Department?
No.
Not in 2016?
No.
Not in 2017?
No.
Not in 2018?
No.
Never-
I have not talked to anyone from the police department.
Okay. And that story about that grilling incident, then, you would have communicated that to the prosecutors themselves sometime before the last time you testified? Is that fair?
Yes. Before court, the first time, I mentioned it to him,
Not to the police, but to the prosecutors?
to the prosecutors.
Okay.
Yes.
May I have a moment to consult with Ms. Riley?
Yes.
I promised there would be a few questions, ma'am, and that's all there were, so I appreciate you taking the time to answer them.
Thank you.
Nothing further.
All right, Ms. Lewis, you're excused. Thank you very much.
Thank
You can
you.
put your mask back on and you're excused from the court. Thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's about 5 to 12, and that concludes the morning session. I'll remind you of the admonition I've previously given you. Don't talk about the case amongst yourselves. Don't talk about it with anyone else. Don't let anyone else talk to you about it. Do not form or express an opinion on the case until it's finally been submitted to you. We're going to take our lunch break, and so if you'll be back in the jury room at 1, we'll proceed at that point in time with our afternoon witnesses. Thank you. Leave your notepads upside down on your chairs, and we'll see you back at 1 o'clock.
All right, please.